Hi, welcome to Math After Hours with Miss Austin. I'm Miss Austin, a licensed math teacher here to help you with your math questions. And today we are looking at absolute value inequalities. If you have not already worked through some absolute value equations, I have a video for that you can go watch. With absolute value inequalities and with absolute value equations, you really need to be thinking of it as a distance from zero. So we have two options here. One is a greater than, and one is a less than, which we'll go over in a second. All right, so if we're looking at the absolute value of x is greater than 3. First, I'm just going to say right here in the middle is 0. And then here's 3 and negative 3. What this is saying right here is that my distance from 0 is greater than 3. So in other words, I'm farther away than 3 from 0. So if I go 3 this direction, I am farther away than that. It's greater than 3. Or if I go 3 in the negative direction, I'm farther away than that. And with inequalities, on a number line you'll have an open or a closed circle. If you have a greater than or equal to or a less than or equal to, that's when your circle is closed because you are including that number. If you do not have the equal to, then the circle will be open. So in this case, the circle would be open at both of these. So in other words, the answer to this question would be that x is less than negative 3 or x is greater than 3. So again, distance from 0 is greater than 3, so it's farther away than 3. So we go to 3 in the positive direction and it's farther than that, or we go to 3 in the negative direction and it's farther than that. If we come over to the second option, this is when we're dealing with a less than. So again, I'm going to set up 0 in the middle, and we have 3 and negative 3. This one is saying that my distance from 0 is less than 3. If our distance from 0 is less than 3, then it's somewhere in between here in the positive direction, or it's somewhere in between here in the negative direction. So that means that 3 is the farthest we can go, and because again we don't have the equal to, our circles would be open at those values, and then our answer is between those two. So my distance from 0 could be 2, or it could be 1 in the negative direction, but it's less than 3. So it's somewhere in between negative 3 and 3, which means the answer would be negative 3 is less than x is less than 3. So we're going to look at an example with each of these, a greater than and a less than. So the first example is the absolute value of 3x minus 2 plus 7 is greater than 12. So just like with absolute value equations, you need to make sure the absolute value is isolated first. So I'm going to subtract this 7 to the other side, which means we have the absolute value of 3x minus 2 is greater than 5. Okay, and this is where the distance thing comes in. If my distance from 0 is greater than 5, then think of the number line. I'll draw one right here for a minute. So here's 5, here's negative 5. If my distance from 0 is greater than 5, then it's either greater than 5 in the positive direction, or it's greater than 5 in the negative direction. So that means you'll see it's less than negative 5, so we're going to say 3x minus 2 is either less than negative 5, or it's greater than 5. So 3x minus 2 is greater than 5. So we have these two separate inequalities to solve now. Here, we'll add 2 to both sides. That's 3x is less than negative 3. And then if we divide by 3, we get that x is less than negative 1. Over here, we'll add 2 That's 3x is greater than 7. So divide by 3, we get that x is greater than 7/3. So those would be the two answers for our inequality. Now, depending on how your teacher asks you to write your answer, this right here is inequality notation. You may be asked to graph your answer on a number line. So if we do that, we would have -1 with an open circle, because both of these are strictly less than and greater than, not equal to. So we have that x is less than -1 or x is greater than 7/3. You could also do your answer in interval notation, which would be -infinity to -1, and then 7/3 to infinity. So those would be your intervals. So that's an example of greater than. If you had a greater than or equal to, the only thing that would change here is the circles would be closed. On part B, we have the absolute value of x plus 2 over 3 is less than or equal to 4. So you'll notice I put an equal to on this one so you can see how it's different from part A. Now the first thing I'd want to do is get rid of the 3 that's in the denominator. The opposite of dividing by 3 is multiplying by 3. So I'll multiply by 3 on both sides to get rid of that. And so I have the absolute value of x plus 2 is less than or equal to 12. Okay, with a less than or equal to, this is different than the one before because now it's saying my distance from 0 is less than or equal to 12. My distance from 0 is less than or equal to 12. So I'll draw a little number line here again for you, if that's helpful. If our distance from 0 is less than or equal to 12, then we are somewhere in this region, and we would have closed circles because it's a less than or equal to. So we're in between -12 and 12 because my distance from 0 will either be less than or equal to 12 in the positive direction or less than or equal to 12 in the negative direction. So that means when we set this up, this will be -12 is less than or equal to x plus 2 is less than or equal to 12. So it's in between these two values. So with a less than, you have an and statement because it's all in one. So you're really solving two inequalities at once. So whatever you do to one side, like I want to subtract 2, we have to do it to the left and to the right. So this would be -14 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 10. And that would be our answer as an inequality. If we wanted to put this on the number line, then we would have -14 with a closed circle, 10 with a closed circle, and we're looking at the area in between those two. So it's the x values from -14 to 10. If you wanted your answer in interval notation would have brackets since the circles are closed, and it would go from -14 to 10. So just to summarize, if you have a greater than, you'll have two separate statements. If it's a less than, there will be one sandwich statement because it's in between. Whenever my students take the less than and try to solve two different inequalities rather than keeping it as one, they tend to get the wrong answer. So that's a way to separate the two. Greater than, keep it as 2. Less than, you should have one statement. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions you would like me to do, please comment them below, and please like and subscribe.